Welcome everyone. Welcome to the National Voices Evaluating Lived Experience event. National Voices is a coalition of health and care charities in England. We have over 190 members and we have 190 members that cover a range of health conditions and diverse communities. My name's Whervin. I'm the lived experience manager here at National Voices, and my lived experience is one of caring. Over to you, Rachel.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Rachel Matthews and I'm the head of experience at National Voices. I'm really pleased you're able to join us this morning. Our other co-facilitator, Lizzie, is just delayed on an emergency, but she's hoping to join us very late and she will introduce herself as we get to that point. So back to Keymn, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. And Elia, can I just hand over to you to do the technical guidance, please?
Of course. Thank you so much to Rachel and Keymn. So lovely to see you all here today. My name is Elia and I am Outreach and Insight Manager at National Voices. And I'm just here to tell you about the techie bits. So, of course, having an event as wonderful as this and welcoming so many people means that we should do our best to ensure that everyone can engage as best they can. So as you can see, and as you will have noticed as you joined the meeting, there is a recording of this session taking place so that those who aren't able to join us today and also for accessibility reasons can then still be a part of the conversation and the discussion at a further point. And there will be the opportunity for this recording to be made available via our YouTube channel as well. There's also closed captioning, as you probably will have seen as well, which has been turned on for this event. And the important thing really, and the message here with accessibility, is to really ensure that we can make arrangements that everyone can be brought into the conversation. So we want to, if you look at the slide here, highlight that there's the opportunity for muting and unmuting, although for questions today we will predominantly be using the chat. The camera function is just on the bottom left as well, so please do turn your cameras on if you can and if you feel comfortable. It would be lovely to see as many smiling faces as possible. And then of course, as many of you are doing already, please feel free to engage via the chat to ensure that we can really hear from what it is that you have to say today. Please message me if you have any concerns about, the recording or any accessibility arrangements that you need us to further consider for today. And we'd like to extend a special thank you to our members, People First, who are a user-led organisation for adults with learning disabilities, because actually they help us to think about how we can ensure our meetings are as inclusive as possible. Please consider the pace at which you speak today. Refrain from using any jargon, or if you do use technical language, please do try to explain it as well so that everyone can understand. And thank you all for really committing to a way of working together and changing the ways also that we bring each other into meetings. I will hand back over to Keymn.
Thank you, Elia. So the purpose of today's event is really for us to share our learning of how we've embedded co-production and had lived experience working alongside National Voices. So we'll share a lot about our offer and that's our coaching and mentor offer that we're really excited to share with you today. And we're hoping that this will help to improve health and care services for people that access services and also address the inequalities that happen in health and care. So for today, we'll go through sections and it will be in 3 sections. The first section we'll talk about how did we actually get here, what happened. We'll then move on to what's changed here at National Voices. And then moving on, we'll talk about how can we support you with our offers that we've got with our lived experience partners. And finally, we'll end with a question and answer session where you'll have the opportunity to ask people with lived experience, our partners, people that have been involved in the coaching, any questions. And then at 12, we will promptly close. Thank you. Over to you, Rachel.
Lovely, thank you very much, Keymn. So before we get stuck into this quite a packed programme, I think the thing we wanted to say was, first of all, we've had a huge amount of interest in these 90 minutes, so it's really pleased to see so many people here. And then also the challenge this has been in terms of trying to distill 2 years of work into 90 minutes. We're very conscious sometimes that we don't always have even the language to explain what's happened over the last 2 years through co-production. So hopefully we will give you enough of a taster, so you get a sense of what we've been up to, what's changing for us, and how you can get involved. And when we get towards the end of the 90 minutes, we'll be telling you how you can stay connected and how you can find out more information. So I think the next step really is to try and cast our minds back to where this all started from. And if we can actually do that, that will take us back to 2019, which feels like almost like a century away now. And I'm really pleased to invite Charlotte August, our Chief Executive, and Anandita Ghosh from the Q community, who are going to remind us about what was going on at that point in time and why did we get started in this. So Charlotte, I think over to you first.
Hello, and thank you, Rachel and Keymn. I'm really excited to see so many of you here, and very pleased to give you a little bit of background as to why we thought we needed to set up this project and why we felt that the Q community was a great partner for it. We started, I think, with the insight that there is a lot of goodwill and positive ambition on both sides of the co-production equation. So system partners, people who lead services, do want co-production to happen because they understand that they are not going to solve the right problem in the right way if they don't work with people with lived experience effectively. And people who give their lived experience, by definition, do so on a wave of goodwill and energy and enthusiasm and ambition. They're largely not paid for doing so, or not paid very well anyway. And we also had the assumption and the insight, listening to a lot of you who are doing this kind of work, that sadly, a lot of this goodwill and energy kind of dissipates without having the impact we all want. And that was the problem we tried to crack. And we wanted to understand not how can we reinvent the wheel, but how can we maybe tend to those questions and issues and topics that are sometimes neglected when we try to do co-production. Amongst those is clearly power and politics, a recognition that we're not all equal. And as we use health and care services and as we live with ill health, that some of us are up against such difficult circumstances that make it more likely in the first place that they're ill, but also make it less likely to have a great experience when they're using health and care services. We call this the inverse engagement law, which is to do with the inverse care law. And vice versa. We don't hear from the right people when we're trying to solve problems. So we felt that was something we needed to tend to. Another thing we really felt we needed to tend to was the question of sustainability. And our friends at the Q community pushed us very hard on that, saying there's no good us giving you a bunch of money and saying, do this for a little while. We've had too many of these flash in a pan initiatives. We need to find a way of making this kind of stuff pay for itself. And you'll hear a bit more about that later. But I think one of the biggest problems with why co-production doesn't always have the impact we want it to have is that we do it in a way that means we have to oversimplify the problem we're trying to solve. The problems health and care services are trying to solve now are not going to be solved by a workshop. Let's face it, even if we have 10 super lived experience experts in the room, a survey and a workshop isn't going to hack it. So we felt we needed to find a way of sending people who are leading services and people who have lived experience of using services and of inequality on a thinking journey, on a partnership that would enable them to actually unpack the complexities of the problems we're trying to solve. The problems we're trying to solve are wicked. It's the inverse care law, it's unequal outcomes, unequal chances, it's blind spots in service provision, it's complaints, it's all that stuff that we have been kicking down the road forever. And I think we're onto something. And I'm not going to steal the thunder of the people who are going to describe exactly how it works. But I think we have succeeded to tend to those neglected topics: power and politics, sustainability, the inverse care law, and the complexity of actually making change happen in health and care. So I'm dead excited. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for summing up the issues that were at play when we started this work. I'd like now to invite Anindita from the Q community to bring her perspective on where we started this work from. Anindita, over to you.
Brilliant. Hi, everyone. I'm Anindita, and a real big thank you to Keymn and Rachel for inviting me. I'm really delighted to be here and reflect on the past 2 years with you. I wanted to connect to what Charlotte has already said about why Q wanted to do this work, and some of my reflections, personal reflections, as well as being quite close and being part of the advisory group from the beginning. So a little bit about Q. Q is an initiative that connects people who have improvement expertise across the UK and Ireland. And we have one simple aim. We want to support people in their improvement work to make it easier for people to share, learn, and collaborate to accelerate the positive impacts that we can have on the health and care system. And we do this through a range of offers to support our aim for our 4,000 members, which include large-scale networking events, learning and development opportunities, and more targeted offers such as participatory grant funding programs. And the reason that we wanted to work on this is echoed in both kind of the strategic rationale, so from the top-down approach, but also a real desire from our members for us to be doing more in this space, and really the moral imperative that this needs to be more widespread, that we really need to be paying attention to this. So knowing that there is that top-down intent and also that bottom-up interest, but that isn't leading to widespread kind of sustainable co-production that we want to be seeing as part of everyday improvement practice. So really through this work with National Voices, drawing on their kind of real expertise and broad membership, we wanted to surface and connect current learning and practice in people in this area across the UK, really develop ideas for boosting impact based on a real deep interrogation of what's needed. So some of the things that themes that Charlotte already mentioned today, and also understand what needs to sit around this work to sustain it for the future. So really think about what makes this sustainable. So really excited to hear more about what Rachel and Keymn will be sharing later. And so the question that I've been holding is sort of what shifts do we need to be made, and how can Q support people working to improve services across different parts of the system and apply the learning from this work. A couple of personal reflections from being part of this group. When Rachel and I first connected, I think March 2020, Rachel, it was, and we shared some similar experiences and observations from previous roles about what had worked, and also some trepidation, I think, that this work didn't repeat previous cycles that haven't always led to sustained action. And I think what really came out for me from that kind of co-design process was what sits unseen in this work, and really kind of uncovering what sits around what makes effective collaboration, and particularly what additional things haven't we been paying attention to that don't sit in front of us that we really need to address through this work. And a few things that came out for me that is the relational foundation of this work, power dynamics, paternalism, equity, diversity, inclusion, really valuing people's experience and their knowledge. And all of these themes and many more are really layered through effective collaboration. And I think, Rachel, you once said, which has stayed with me, nothing we learned in that kind of research phase felt like a surprise, but we need to attend to things differently to broaden our understanding and invitation of collaboration. And I think for me, being part of the advisory group really helped me move from seeing the problem with all of that context and all of those layers and all of those themes to be in a much more creative, energetic and imaginative space of what might be possible and how we could really take action. And I was really only able to do that with the support of kind of each individual and collectively as a group. And really, I'm really looking forward to thinking about how you can support people working improvement to understand and learn from today. I've really benefited from broadening my language and my understanding personally. So over to you, Rachel, I think. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Anindita. And it's really helpful to hear you say the question that you've been holding is, you know, what are the shifts that we need to make? And thank you for also highlighting the fact that, yeah, a lot of what we discovered won't be new to many people who are on this call today, but it's how we're actually holding that together now as a group. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sort of go through the first sort of, it's a bit like a bit of a sandwich today. We're going to do the first part of the sandwich, and we're going to do a little bit of meat in a moment. So it's going to be a bit of a double act between me and Keymn. And we're going to take you through what happened with this work in the first sort of 12 months of working together. So you've heard Charlotte and Anna to talk about how we sort of came to this partnership, what the shared interest was about how do we strengthen collaboration, and yeah, how do we make more sort of meaningful relationships, and how do you really make a difference? And I think the first thing to say was when we started this work, the intention was at the beginning of 2020 that we would do all of this face-to-face. And then, of course, as we all know, in March 2020, COVID-19 happened. And I, in fact, got stuck in another country right on the other side of the world. So that already posed a problem that we had not anticipated in terms of getting the work underway. But I was fortunate to be supported by Charlotte and Ella in our team, who were able to run a really useful and good recruitment process so we could bring a diverse advisory group together. And you can see how we all went online here, and that was how we had to start building relationships. And at that point in time, that can feel quite an isolating place to start from, and we needed to scope that work as well. What were we trying to build together? And that was sort of unclear at that point in time. I'm going to hand to Keymn now to talk about the next stage, really.
Yeah, so the reason I joined the advisory group is because I'd always been involved in co-production at a board level with health and care statutory services, and I was really interested in how the voluntary sector worked, because I always seen opportunities for the voluntary sectors to be supporting local integrated care systems that support regions. When we came together as an advisory group, we did some desktop research, and we realised that we're not trying to solve a problem, we're just looking for what are the good examples out there of services that have been developed with people with lived experience alongside leaders. So throughout this whole process, we've had people with lived experience be involved in being critical friends right from the outset. We sat down, we had 2 online events, and we invited members of National Voices to help us support those online events where we brought together all our research and findings. Whilst doing this, we were able to build really strong relationships and check and challenge each other along the way, which was really important. This was not a new way of working, and we know this, and we knew that we had to put something that was a test, and it was something that we had to do slowly, and that's when Peter, would you like to talk a little bit more about your involvement?
Yes, hello. I self-manage a number of long-term health conditions, and I speak for a voice prosthesis. I will try and enunciate clearly, but if it doesn't come across, I imagine that Keymn or Rachel will jump in and try and translate for me. I am a member of a patient and carer group in the School of Health Sciences at the University of Southampton. In the time I've been with the advisory group, what I've noticed is the range and depth experience of healthcare services throughout the group, whether it be patients, service users, or carers, and sometimes a combination of more than one. And we come from around the country. And I think that during the time we've worked together, each of us has been able to bring different perspectives at different times, and drawing not just as individuals, of course that's important, but from people we work with in groups or communities. And some of them I've noticed are those that are not traditionally very well represented. I think although each of us are fairly confident in what we're doing in our own groups, we do realise that we can be even more effective at improving healthcare if we can find ways of working together. And that's really why we're here today, and you'll be hearing more about it later on.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Peter, for your contribution. And I think it'd be safe to say that, as Keymn has been describing, that as we started to get to know each other, one of the things we all had to hold was a sense of we didn't necessarily have a clear end point about what was this work actually going to look like. So at different stages, all of us in the advisory group probably went through the sort of sense of, you know, there's an ambiguity about this, there's an uncertainty. And that's where we needed to support and to challenge each other about, so where is this leading? What's going to happen as a result of that? And as Keymn has described, as we sort of got our ideas and sort of began to do some desktop research and a bit of experience, we were able to sort of bring this out to a wider group of people. So people from across our membership, and also we knew people who in many ways had already, you know, really set a good path around co-production. We wanted to learn from them, and also how we could do more of that. Keymn, is there anything else you want to say in terms of your experience at this stage before we move on to the next slide?
Just in terms of National Voices and how it kind of changed in terms of lived experience, where actually being online in the pandemic, it actually attracted people from a geographical range as well. It wasn't just London based. We had advisory group members, like I'm from the Midlands, we had somebody from Scotland. So that kind of brought an insight what was happening at a wider geographical area, which was really interesting, and was able to learn off that as well.
Great, thanks, Keymn. I think what was important is really showing how we can check and challenge. So as a group of us working together, we just wanted to make sure that what we were seeing and thinking, did that resonate with others who are not necessarily in our team or working with us here. So as Anandita has already mentioned, you know, what we, and Charlotte too, is what we discovered, and it won't come as a surprise to anybody, is that, you know, the things that get in the way of effective collaboration that feels meaningful and has an absolute makes a difference, is some really big issues around, for example, paternalism, race inequality, and how we talk about diversity and inclusion, but what does that actually mean in practice? What does it mean to be more diverse? What does it mean to be more inclusive? And I think we were sort of I suppose very humbled really in finding that in many ways we're not discovering anything new, but as Anandita said, you know, we don't want to do more of the same. We wanted to do something different, and we knew as a group that we wanted to change things. We had to think about how are we going to do that. And Charlotte has alluded to the relational components of this, about how do we build the relationships together. So we really sort of had to begin to make a commitment to what did we want to do differently. And that was around how do we set the relationships, and we felt that something around coaching and mentoring would change the balance of power. We also wanted to think about how we could do more of things like peer research and peer evaluation and supporting people to do that. In other words, where is the evidence coming from? And then importantly, we recognise that many people have already shared a lot of information about their experiences and about how we can work with that evidence more effectively. So rather than repeating and going around things more than once. So we had three sort of ideas that came at the end of this sort of 12 months of work. And given sort of the time and resources and the fact that we were still in the middle of the pandemic, we really wanted to focus on how could we build this coaching and mentoring sort of relationship, and where would we get started with that, and absolutely how would we do that together. So rather than designing an agenda and then offering out to people who wanted to do it with people. So that's sort of where we ended up after the first 12 months. And in a moment, we're just going to highlight some of the key learning points from this period. But I just want to go back to Keymn in case there's anything you want to add here about the sort of what we discovered.
Yeah, I think mainly about the challenges of bringing everyone together and everybody having great ideas, but it became apparent that we all understood co-production in the room, but when we were all going back and trying to speak to people that didn't really understand it or were finding it difficult to do it in their own organisations, it was really hard to articulate what we mean by working with people with lived experience. I think it's an action. and it's a doing. And that's why the coactive model for the coaching and mentoring is a great way to embed that with senior leaders and to help them think differently.
Great, thank you very much, Keymn. So what we want to do at this stage, just sort of sum up our main learning at this stage. So if we could just go to the next slide here, if that's okay, we could just highlight some of those messages. So again, nothing that will be a surprise in some ways, and I think what we just want to do is be very, very explicit about this, because I think co-production, as Anindita and Sandra said, there's a lot of unseen work that goes behind the process of it. And that's sort of what we've been trying to capture in some of our images today. So be flexible, and Keymn can say a little bit more about that in a moment. We absolutely wanted to build from existing experience. This is not about trying to fix or trying to think of deficits. This is about working with the strengths that people have, the assets that they bring. We learned a lot. I certainly learned a lot in the process of doing this first stage. And then we have to commit to tackling the difficult issues. And that means feeling more confident around having more difficult conversations. Keymn, do you want to add anything around the sort of any of those learning points?
Yeah, in terms of being flexible, I remember at the time I was there was 3 of us that were actually pregnant when we started the group, and we thought we wouldn't be able to carry on because we were pregnant. And I think the foundations and the support that Rachel put in, you contacted us all individually, you updated everybody individually so we could be involved. And I know some of us lost loved ones near the beginning of the pandemic as well, but Rachel, you stuck with it, you supported us. And I think when you've got that buy-in from leadership and Charlotte and yourself and the National Voices team, it really helped the advisory group stick together and understand what was going on, and helped us to develop our vision. In terms of building on existing experience, yeah, everybody in the room had something to bring, was able to look at people as a whole and as creative, and we were able to listen to one another and think about how do we take those ideas forward. And in terms of committing to tackling difficult issues, we all know we had the Black Lives Matter movement, and at that time that was all going on. And you know, these are the things that we're trying to address, these inequalities. How can we support those voices that are not normally heard? And a light bulb went off, and we thought this is how we can also address health inequalities.
Lovely, thank you much, Keymn. And so I think one of the things we've learned to sort of let go of is, I suppose, is sometimes we would, when you're planning something, we want things to be in a particular way. But because of the challenges thrown up by the pandemic, and also the way we work through co-production, is we've got much more confident with working with what's possible, you know, what can we do? So, for example, we may do more meetings at shorter notice than we might have done pre-pandemic. But actually what we've noticed is that if we offer people the space, so for example, let's get together and we need to unpack 1 or 2 things, often people are able to do that. So it's we've worked in a much more organic and sort of evolutionary ways we've gone through it. And I'm amazed actually about how committed people have been by being flexible. We have worked with what it is, not with what we would like it to be. So I think we're going to, in a moment, we're going to swap through now to Lizzie, who I'm pleased to say has been able to rejoin us after a few things we had to deal with as an emergency this morning. And Lizzie is going to take us through the next stage of the story, which is what's changed at National Voices. And I'm really pleased that we have got quite a few voices to introduce to you today as well, people who have been working with us at this time, and Lizzie will be talking through with them and with me and Keymn about what has happened. So Lizzie, I think if you're okay to take over from here.
I am indeed. Thank you, Rachel. Hi everyone. Apologies I missed the beginning, some just slight emergencies going on here, but hopefully I'm here now for the rest of the session. My name is Lizzie Keymn and I work at Co-Production Collective, which is based at UCL. And we are a co-production community which is entirely open to anyone who is interested in co-production. And we exist to support and champion co-production across research, policy, services and communities. And by that we mean working together in equal partnership to improve outcomes for everyone. So my role on this project was as a learning partner. So helping to understand, as Rachel said, what's changed as a result of this work and how across National Voices and beyond. So I'm going to pick up the story here to start answering some of those questions. And first of all, in the first frame that you can see here on the next slide is Keymn and Rachel taking on a co-leadership of this work. So they brought together lived and learned experience at the heart of the Voices for Improvement project and really driving it forward. So as we've heard, Keymn was part of the advisory group, and she offered challenge and perspective to Rachel that worked really well for them. So they decided they wanted to sustain and develop this relationship further, which they've done through Rachel coaching Keymn, working alongside each other in equal partnership, and ultimately co-designing the coaching model, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So I'm just going to actually hand back to Rachel and Keymn now for a minute or two to share a little bit about their working relationship and the personal and professional impact they feel it's had. Over to you two.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to start, Rachel. So what have I experienced and what's been the impact? So for me, it's been great to have a team come and support me and have a vision, because I'm always that one person sitting in the room being that token patient or lived experience. So what happened at National Voices is the language began to change. We stopped calling people patients and start using the term lived experience. And then when we were co-leading together as well, we were able to create a really good, develop a crucial relationship, which is vital for co-production to happen. And you also seen a black person, a black lady and a white lady together leading on an equal basis. Rachel and I think we find it hard to go to meetings now without one another, because we bounce off one another, and it's really difficult, and we always have to check in to say, have we heard that right? Are we on the right thing? And sometimes we don't think the same, and I have to say, Rachel, I need to challenge you there, and we've got a way of just thrashing it out behind the scenes, but we've got that relationship where I feel confident that I can say, no, that's not right, and that's not what's happening outside, because I can bring my experience of working in Nottinghamshire ICS, and now I've worked closely with Debbie Draper with the My Life Choices team there, and the personalised care team. And what that's done for me is bring insight into National Voices as a national voluntary sector, to understand how the voluntary sector can meet demands for what the ICS, the kind of support ICS needs. We brought different skills. I was involved on an interview panel, and that's when I think the National Voices actual team started to diversify, and you started to see different, people from different backgrounds coming into the team. And I think I was asking Rachel, I need to get into some meetings, Rachel. She was like, what do you need? What do you want? And she was asking all her coaching questions, and I said, I can't really do this by myself. I need my own community to come and help me, so they can explain what we can do and what our offer is. And I kept on pushing on that, and then I felt like I became part of the team then, and I was let into meetings, and I was building my own knowledge of what National Voices is and how it works. And also I brought my networks along with that, so I could direct some of the team members to the right places when certain projects were coming up. It's just been really fascinating, because Rachel's also coached me, and I can see how I've grown personally, and the impact that's actually had on people around me. Because what I have been doing is practicing the coaching skills that I've picked up from Rachel. I've also done the 2-day training course. It isn't accredited, but I believe that we've all got skills that we can hone into to coach people. So I think what I've managed to actually do, the impact of that has been that I've been practicing on individuals, and they've actually been able to feel confident and actually get roles. I've got one person that hadn't had a permanent job for 5 years, and got the first interview, the first job. We did some coaching sessions. So this has been the impact of me working very closely with Rachel, and the support that's behind it is, you can't explain it. And I'll keep on saying this, is a thread to do. You just go and do it, get an idea, run with it and do it with somebody that's an ally with you. I've got loads more to say, but maybe that's for another event. But yeah, Rachel, you can have a say now.
Great, thank you very much, Keymn. So to follow on from that, I think the co-leadership experience has been transformational for me too. I've held a lot of roles similar to this one, and I've usually been working alone, and it's a very often quite an isolating place to be, and it can be pretty exposing as well. So when Keymn was on the advisory group and we had built a good relationship, and I always remember Keymn as really giving me very, very constructive challenge about what we were doing with that initial stage of work. And I felt that we needed to do more of that and grow that. And it's something that I'd had an ambition for in a previous role, was to how could we bring in more co-leadership. So here was our opportunity that we probably weren't expecting, was to set up a co-leadership model. And I think to just do it, I think, you know, we can talk about it, but actually just see how it works in practice. And Keymn initially became an associate, and now she's a permanent member of our team. And as Keymn was saying, we tend to go to meetings together, or we talk to people together. We will bring different perspectives to it, and as Keymn says, we will challenge each other. You know, we don't always agree, and we've both got blind spots with the work that we're doing, and that's what's so valuable, is that when I don't see something, Keymn may spot something, and vice versa. And also Keymn has introduced me to some wonderful, inspiring people with lived experience who are now becoming part of our team as well. So it's really this sort of, I think Liz is talking a little bit about it as well, it's a sense of a ripple effect coming out from the work that we've done. So transformational, certainly for us, and we've also been really fortunate to be supported by Charlotte and the rest of the team, who've again taken the risk and helped us to shift. Going back to the question that Anandita said at the beginning, is what needs to shift, and we wanted to move into this space. So I think that's all we want to say. There's a lot more we could, but I think we've got other people we want to hear from too. So Lizzie, back to you.
Thank you. There's definitely a lot more to say there, but in interest of time, we can't. But part of my role has been to spend time with Rachel and Keymn and talk them through every week what they're doing and finding out more in their relationship. It's really something special, and you can see how it's powering this project forward. And as Rachel said, the ripple effect is something that we keep coming back to, seeing the opportunity to share the insight of this project more widely, and that's across the National Voices team and beyond as well. So within National Voices, this is rippling into the comms, into the strategy, into the policy, and into the delivery of their work. Lived experience has always been central and important to National Voices, but now it's at the absolute heart, with particular attention to those from groups experiencing marginalisation or whose voices aren't often heard in this kind of space. An example of this is the recent trustee recruitment that National Voices has undertaken. So Keymn suggested that people with lived experience could be actively involved in supporting trustee recruitment and diversification. So modelling within National Voices what this project is aiming to help others achieve. And so a lived experience panel was formed, and they successfully appointed 2 new trustees, Sharon and Kalu, from backgrounds and experiences that National Voices previously did not have on the board. I think I'm going to bring in Charlotte here, if that's okay, to share a little bit more about the impact of Voices for Improvement on the wider National Voices organisation. Charlotte, do you want to share your thoughts?
Thanks, Lizzie. Yes. I think we strike a kind of quite delicate balance sometimes at National Voices. One of the reasons that senior decision makers in the system want us around the table is that we can sound like them. We can make ourselves fit in. And that's easy then. You know, you give a seat at the table for Charlotte, or you give a seat at the table for Rachel, and you know, it ripples a bit, and we are trying to be challenging, but it's not awkward for anyone. I think what with the balance we are now trying to hold is, how can we do more justice to both ends of our work? The end that's to do with senior decision makers and, you know, the corridors of power, where we're no doubt represented. You know, we have brilliant access to people who make important decisions about the health and care system, but also our connection with the grassroots, and through our members, the connection to the lived experience of, you know, thousands and thousands, if not millions and millions of people who are living with chronic ill health, with disability, with impairment, and crucially with inequality. And what does that look like? And I don't think we've got that entirely solved, but I do think we are trying hard to bring actual experiences of people into rooms where normally maybe it wouldn't be heard. And vice versa. We're trying to bring decision makers into rooms where people are discussing their lived experience. Recently, we've talked about access to primary care, and the team at NHS England who are designing a comms campaign about how to access primary care. And I said a lot of things that you all would have said, but we brought this team together with people with lived experience of feeling excluded by primary care, and I could see the penny drop. There's something about facilitating learning that's more experiential and that people will remember better. You know, we're talking to a lot of people who read hundreds of pages of text every day. We can't expect that if we sneak a page of text in there, they will remember that. But if they talk to Keymn or they talk to Andrew, who attended our primary care workshop, who talked from an experience of living with learning disability and finding it hard to know how to use primary care, people won't forget that. And that's, I think, what we're trying to achieve. So I wouldn't ever make out we're at the end of this journey, but I feel like we're on our way, and that's a very satisfying feeling.
Brilliant. Thank you, Charlotte. And it's exactly that. It is a journey, and it's a journey that involves a lot of people shaping it along the way. And as we've heard, there's been lots and lots of ideas, and as we've had activity and ripples from the Voices for Improvement project. But the current focus, which you'll have heard a little bit about, is a coaching and mentoring program that's been co-designed by Rachel and Keymn and the wider team. And this builds from the skills that people with lived experience often already use and already have to support the conversations about improving health and care in the settings that they do this. But this program provides a framework and a structure to strengthen this, with the idea that this will then lead on to those people with lived experience coaching and mentoring leaders across the health and care system and organisations through a careful matchmaking process and through ongoing supervision and learning support from Rachel and Keymn. The relationship they have can be recreated in other organisations and settings. That trust, that one-to-one relationship and that safe space for action-focused conversations that will lead to genuine change. So this programme, it starts with an initial 2-day training module, and 2 pilots of this have been delivered so far. And I'm delighted to say that 4 of the lived experience partners who've been on this training are here with us today: Helen, Richard, Sandra, and Samantha J. So I'm just going to check that we've got everyone here. I think we do. I'm going to ask you one by one if you're happy to introduce yourselves and just share a little bit about what brought you to this project. So we'll start with Helen, if you're around, Helen.
Morning, everybody. I have to say I'm slightly nervous seeing how many people have joined to listen to the journey that National Voices have been on, and I just want to really thank you for setting aside time in your busy days, because we've all got pulled on our time, and to give an hour and a half up is huge. My name's Helen. I am mum to a 25-year-old with complex medical needs. He's got a physical disability, he's got a learning disability, and I've got an awful lot of collective experience from navigating my way through 25 years of a system that doesn't really want to work with me or hasn't beforehand. So I suppose I've come to co-production and this piece of work quite fatigued, quite tired, whilst I'm quite active at national and local level. I sometimes feel there's a real danger of me being rolled out as that tokenistic, oh, we've got a carer, let's bring an unpaid carer, and you know, we can tick a box, thank you very much. And I think this programme really piqued my interest. I didn't understand what it was going to be. I didn't understand how it was going to work for me or with the skills that I didn't see I had. So that's it in a nutshell, Lizzie. Is that enough?
That's brilliant. Thank you, Helen. Pass on to Richard, if you want to go next.
Thank you, Lizzie. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Hear you great.
Perfect. Yeah. So yes, my name is Richard Chapman. I live in Nottingham. I've been living with what was probably described as post-traumatic stress for a long time, and emotional trauma has a grip on you in a way that has meant I've not been able to engage with, you know, services and care and things like that, because trying to do that has just been too difficult. So one of the things that has brought me here is actually having a little bit of time and space to allow myself to reflect and think a little bit more about, well, if it's happened to me, it must be happening to other people. I was very lucky to do a thing called the Peer Leadership Development Program, something that Helen just heard from has been on as well. And it's a sort of a training course that the NHS England provide for people like myself to understand how our experience can help others. So having very practically that time and space to actually reflect and think a little bit and try and engage with some of the things that are very difficult for me to engage with. So there's a message there about this kind of thing being offered at the right time, or it might not be the right time for some people. So there is a sort of element of sort of uncertainty about all this. What I really find very powerful about this, when I try to do this, when I think about coaching and when I think about trying to help others, is actually there's an enormous power in honesty. And honesty is not in like, you don't tell fibs or, telling someone exactly what you think of them. Honesty with yourself about why you feel like you feel, what you believe and why you believe that. And that can be very difficult because you might find that you're wrong, and you have to change your perspective. So that power of just being able to reflect and examine your own kind of understanding of things, that's been a real unlock for me, and something that I would want to bring for others, I guess.
And thank you so much, Richard. Sandra, would you like to share a little bit about why you chose to get involved with this work?
Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Sandra J. I have lived experience of severe mental illness, and as a result of that, I really lost my confidence quite a lot, and I have my days ups and downs even now. I also currently have been working as a peer researcher, and I do a lot of patient and public involvement work. What brought me to this training was, first of all, it was an invite from Rachel, and I couldn't say no. I just thought, I'm at the point where I'm not sure where am I going or where am I coming in terms of my career, because when I was diagnosed, following my diagnosis, I was told I was unfit to work. So that takes a big toll on you, and you lose your confidence totally. And then I've been doing bits and bobs here and there. So this is a great opportunity for me to actually use my lived experience and to put value to that lived experience, is an added value to the lived experience, and be able to help others as well. So I have been coaching youngsters informally based on my own lived experience, and because I do not want them to get into the trap that I was in, but it was informal. So coming to the training, this gave me that professionalism to how to actually do it properly. And I think it was such a mind-blowing, it was not difficult at all. So that's what brought me to this training.
Thank you, Sandra. I think that's definitely something that's come out of the training so far, is that none of this is new, really. It's a lot of this building on what you've already got and the work that you've already been doing, and just putting that structure and that framework around it. Samantha Jane, I think we'd love to hear from you as well, if you'd like to share a little bit about your story.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Samantha Jane, and I'm based in Liverpool. As you can see, I've got my baby here in my arms. His name is Theodore, he's 6 months old. I'm here today because I am, a Black woman who is in her 40s. This is my first child. I've also had a child. He's been diagnosed with Down syndrome and a congenital heart issue. So in this past year, it's really been like a real turn of events for me. And I just I've had this whole experience, and then Keymn has contacted me, thinking that my lived experience would really be influential in the project she was involved in. And to be honest, I'm completely new to terms like co-production and lived experience. And so just her seeing something in me, being able to contribute to making changes in the system, because I did have a really traumatic pregnancy experience, and still quite a traumatic time postnatally because of the way conditions like Down syndrome are seen in the system. you know, I really wanted to just jump on board and see how I could get involved. And I've learned so much, and, you know, seeing how someone with my experience could be a coach and could be a mentor. You know, my background is in fashion design, and, you know, I have coached and mentored people in that respect, but I never really thought or could see how it could be transferred. So yeah, that's what's brought me here today, is to learn more about what this whole lived experience and co-production thing is about, and how national voices are putting this into play. So yeah, that's
brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to direct this to all four of you now. If you want, would you like to share a bit about what you're learning as part of this work, and also where you'd like to go with it, with the project more broadly or with your individual journeys? So anything that you'd like to share, please feel free.
I'll jump in. I might as well go first.
Go for it, Helen.
I've done courses before, and I think a lot of people have. This one was different because I was allowed to really be my authentic self. I didn't have to filter by using a certain set of language. I could be true to who I was during this. And actually by doing this course and opening yourself up, as Richard said, you know, in a way that you can be self-reflective throughout in a safe space, allows you to develop as a human being. I came to it very much not understanding what it was. I often see myself, even after all this time, as just an unpaid carer. So how could I have the skills to coach and mentor a senior leader within, you know, the powers of hierarchy? And what I learned was, you know, for doing this course, and for me, the coactive model in particular allowed me to see that we meet people where they are, and that we shouldn't come with any preconceived ideas about people just because they're either somebody like me who's just an unpaid carer, but equally the same for somebody that's worked their way up the ladder and they've got senior positions within the health and social care system. So the coaching and mentoring really is a leveler, and I really learned that we could have conversations, and you know, I have got skills, I have got value, I have got experience that I can bring to bear to help shape a system that will work for people like me, but also my son, who has a learning disability, who finds accessing services really difficult, and isn't necessarily able to coherently express his thoughts and feelings in a way that I am. Where do I want to go? Well, you know, the sky's the limit, surely. Just to work with people that want to be open to working in a different way, to break down those corridors of power that Charlotte eloquently talked about. You know, let's start this off again. Let's put us all on a level footing. You know, there is no hierarchy, there is no power. The power is in people talking. Let's not put labels in here, but we are people talking to one another because we want to make a difference. So I'm really, really excited about how I'm going to use my skills and move them forward with the support of Rachel and Keymn and the others that are on this today.
That's brilliant, Helen. Thank you. I'm very aware of time, but I want to make sure I give you a chance to chat as well, Samantha J and Sandra or Rich. So if there's anything you'd like to share, please do.
Well, I'll go on, Samantha Jane. Yeah, go on.
Thank you, Rich. Yeah, I'll just be concise. Like I say, I'm new to this, and it's been really insightful to see how, you know, with my experience, I could have the skills to coach and mentor people in these positions. And, you know, where I just want to go with this is, because of the experience I've had, a lot of it traumatic, you know, still some of it good. It's just to see what influence and what positive influence I could have in making changes, you know, within these systems, because it's really important.
Thank you. Rich?
Yeah, I think in terms of what I've learned, I think there is you know, again, I've learned that I'm kind of ready for this now. There is an expression that we looked at in going through the training, which was allow the emotion. Now that's very difficult for me because I don't engage with my emotions particularly well. So actually allowing the emotions and actually exploring that with people is something that I'm learning how to do, and I'm kind of sort of looking forward to it. Where I want to go with it, I mean, personally, there are things I'd like to learn how to do, be a good coach and have an impact on something that I believe in. So that's about feeding into my own purpose, with a capital P sort of thing. And I think from a sort of high level, if I step back and think about it, things are very difficult and have been very difficult for a couple of years in health and care, and for over a long period of time for many people. And actually, optimism comes from making a change for the better. So actually, what I want to get out of this is some optimism from people that things can get better and things can change. Because if you're just banging your head against the wall and you've been doing it for 25 years, it's a pretty bleak place. So anything that we can do that brings that sense of optimism, change, and hope, that's why I'm really doing it.
Thank you, Rich. And Sandra, last word from you.
Thank you. One of the things about the training itself was the session was not, you got death by PowerPoint, but this session was not death by PowerPoint. So it was absolutely, paced out. And I'm one of those person who cannot stay focused for very long. And during this session, I never even have to think about whether I'm going to be staying focused or not, because it was full of lots of opportunities for discussions, communications. And also, I think one of the things that stood out for me was we were learning through the session. And so we were adapting the training, how we were working together as a group. And so in a way, the session was like co-produced as it went along. So that was really, really good. The other thing, there was we had lots of opportunity to do role play, and doing that role play was the one that really made me help understand and really increased my skills. Another thing that I learned during the session was how I always have this fear of me not being eloquent or not having the right words to say. I might lose my words, but the way the session was conducted, I didn't feel that, and I feel like I have the confidence to carry on, doing coaching as a profession. So it has really helped me to enhance the skills that I have had.
I'm so sorry, Sandra. I'm going to have to. So sorry, and would love to hear more from you. And we are going to hopefully have time for a Q&A and a chance to ask some more questions at the end. But I just want to make sure that we get through as many people as possible today. So thank you so much to all four of you. It would be great actually now if we wouldn't mind bringing in Shayna. So Shayna Ramsden is from NHS England and Improvement and is the recipient of the first coaching. So Keymn has had a coaching relationship with Shayna. So Shayna, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about your background and your role and why you were interested in being coached with someone with lived experience. Oh, Shayna, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you. So I'm Shayna Ramsden. I'm currently have a job, and my job role is I'm director of the vaccination workforce, working for NHS England and NHS Improvement. And when I was first approached to be part of this programme, I was actually quite excited, but also curious about what the experience would be like to be coached by somebody who's a service user, a patient, and has lived experience of using services. Now, my position is I've worked from home for nearly 2 years now, so it's been a very different lifestyle during the pandemic. And we have had one big deadline and target after another. So over the last 2 years, I haven't had very much thinking time or thinking space. It really has been deliver, deliver, deliver. So for me, and also I guess what I've been finding is that the more senior I've become, the less psychologically safe spaces I've had where I can be completely open and completely vulnerable. I think I've just haven't done that as much as I had in previous roles. So for me, this came just at the right time. my coach said, you can talk about anything you like, anything you want to explore, whatever topic you want. And I immediately felt safe. And it was a very trusting relationship. I felt my confidentiality was absolutely going to be supported. It's been an emotional 2 years with the pandemic, particularly because BAME communities have been hit harder than many other communities. Everyone struggled, but we've had a detrimental impact on our communities. So being emotionally supported was really important. And also powerful conversations. I never felt I was going to be judged for what I said. I could think aloud and test out my ideas. The coaching itself was very skilled. So bear in mind, throughout my career, I've had a huge amount of executive coaching from very experienced professionals, leaders in their field. But this coaching I had was different, because I felt completely supported. I felt actively listened to. The coach asked questions and noticed my body language and reflected back on my body language, and actually gently challenged me. So I wasn't let off the hook. So my assumptions were being challenged, and then but it was done in a safe way. So I didn't come away feeling embarrassed. It was really powerful. And I've had 2 sessions now, and I would like to keep going. So as Director of Workforce, one of the challenges is that it's really easy just to think about workforce with such a huge field. And what the sessions did was they gave me the confidence to really articulate what I want to see for patients and what I want to see for people using services. So seeing people as part of the workforce solution. Also, it helped me it just triggered my thinking around self-directed support and personal budgets and peer support. And I began to gradually think about those in part of my work, even though a lot of the time the sessions weren't about peer support. It was just being part of that experience meant that I could think about those issues. The other important aspect for me, I chair at the Turning the Tide Transformation and Oversight Board, was the addressing of health inequalities. So it was important for me that there's diversity in the lived experience partners, and that gave me a real reality check around some of the programs we're running. And one of the outcomes of this coaching is I've actually built co-production into our regional Turning the Tide board strategy. And then finally, I felt that this was a really valuable space for reflection. And what I want to say to anyone interested in the coaching is definitely do it, go for it, because what it's helped me to realize is that people who use services and patients, they're not a problem to be solved. They're actually part of the solution. And you've seen from the presentations we've heard today from your lived experience, not just part of the solution, but absolutely essential for us to be able to address the issues we're facing in the NHS.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Shayna. That was incredible. Thank you. I'm going to move on now to talk briefly around the learning partnership that I formed with this project. So I joined initially, as I said earlier, I work as Co-Production Collective at UCL, and I joined initially to support with evaluation, but it quickly became clear that actually a learning partnership is going to be more appropriate and more meaningful. So it's what aligns with this model and this way of working. As a learning partner, it's a commitment to working with, not doing for or doing to. It's bridging that insider-outsider role, allowing me to be responsive and flexible with the process, acting as a thinking partner and critical friend to Rachel and Keymn, offering a space for reflection, and generating learning to support activity. So in a way, kind of similar to the coaching model. And in the true spirit of this project, I didn't do this on my own, and I'm not doing it on my own. I'm working alongside 2 co-learning partners with lived experience, Marlon and Richard. And Richard is here, so I'm going to ask him to introduce himself and reflect a little on why he wanted to get involved and his experience so far. Thank you. Hi, Richard.
Hi, thank you. A little bit about me first. I'm a full-time carer for aging parents, and lived with bipolar diagnosis since the age of 17. I joined the Voices for Improvement programme initially, as Lizzie has just said, as a learning partner. And I think the idea behind that was to ensure that the co-production ethos ran through the learning and development side as well. And so I brought a bit of balance to Lizzie's learnt experience. And people have talked a lot about trust from the beginning, all the way through this session today. And I wasn't interviewed or anything like that. It was more like I had a chat with people to see if we were compatible, and we got on, and we developed some trust straight away. And then later on, having seen what's happened, I had the opportunity to go on and be a participant in the training as well. And finally, later still, I'll work with Lizzie on looking at all the feedback that we've had. And it'd be interesting there, the dynamic, because I, as a participant, I'll have, I'll be emotionally connected, and Lizzie hopefully can provide all that objectivity that we need. The very first thing that happened was I contributed some pre-questions for the first pilot group, and I was gently questioned by Lizzie because I'd automatically gone back to my sort of professional career, and I'd automatically gone through the documentation, looked at what the funders' expectations were, and framed the questions to meet the data that would suit the funders. And Lizzie sort of gently nudged me and said, well, focus on the participants. And if we focus on the participants' needs, then we'll probably end up meeting the funders' needs, and actually we'll find new and better and different ones for the funders hadn't thought of. And that's where I really got hooked, I think, because it was qualitatively different at that stage. Another qualitative different experience, or differentiating aspect for me is, and people have mentioned this as well, is the ethos around the programme creates time and space for priorities to emerge, and more importantly, time and space for creativity. Doesn't mean that there are no deadlines and that you aren't challenged and stuff, but that runs through everything. And I think, when I think back to my working experience and all of my friends, what they say about working in NGOs, charities, public bodies and businesses, everything's driven by outputs, efficiency, outcomes, targets, plans. And so when you've got that around you, it's just it's difficult to let priorities emerge from the bottom up, and it's difficult to take risks, and it's difficult to be creative. And I think this is something that the programme does well. And also in terms of the support for participants, creating that time and space, and not reasonable adjustment, but full adjustment to what people need, in order to make it work for them, and for them to make it work for everyone else. And I think that support ethos as well will be what drives the sustainability of the programme going forward, because there's plenty of wraparound, and I'm keen to take advantage of all of that. And the last thing I'll say is, as I said, another point of difference is, as I said before, my first instinct was to default back to my professional role, my professional ideas and habits. It's so hard not to when you're in a work environment where you've got all these time pressures and they're constantly on you. And somebody I've been working with recently, who is a senior leader in the health system, they said the other day, they said, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, that's why I'm reading now, they said about themselves as, I'm passionate about co-production, I believe in it, I strive to make it central in all I do. But with work pressures and deadlines and everything, sometimes reflexively and without noticing it, I default back to the standard model, and the co-production slips away.
Yeah.
And what I need, this person said, is what I really need is a guardian angel sitting on my shoulder and just gently pointing out to me, you've defaulted back to normal, but back to the standard. And I think this programme, has the potential to really meet that need, fill that gap around that.
Thanks so much, Richard. And of course, working alongside Richard and Marlon has had an impact on me and my approach to this project. I'm asking different questions, I'm checking my assumptions, we're trying different things. It's a different process to how it would have been on my own. We'll have a lot more I could say around learning, and Richard and I and Marlon will be sharing our findings in the next few months, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, I'm going to hand back to Rachel and Keymn to take us through the next section.
Lovely, thank you very much, Lizzie. And I'm looking at Keymn and looking at the time, and just first of all really to acknowledge Helen, Samantha J, Sandra, Richard and Shayna, to thank you again for giving up your time to join us this morning and to so articulately share bits of yourself and your reflections, and also what this is meaning for you. And we really appreciate that. You know, this work, it is not one person, it is how we all work together. So to really thank you for that. We just wanted to quickly take you through now sort of a little bit of a structured way of talking about, you know, what's on offer. And I'm seeing in the chat people are obviously wanting more information and want to know more, and as I said at the beginning, we were going to struggle to get it into 90 minutes, so there will be a way of getting more information about this if you're interested in either being coached or mentored, or if you want to take part in the training. So Keymn, do you just want to trot through our sort of what our offer is?
Yeah, so basically our offer is to really help the system and move away from performance management and support system leaders to actually work with lived experience at a high level to help them influence the work that they're doing. Our offers are our lived experience coaches and partners, and being coached and mentored by our partners. Also, Rachel and I, learning from our co-leadership, we can advise you and help you to support you setting up a co-production group, how it works, the downfalls, and share our learning of what it felt like to do that together in our organisation. And lastly, we're building, because we're testing this at the moment, and we're building our community of lived experience so people can tap into all different partners, their communities, and bring their knowledge so that system leader can access that community. And behind that, Rachel and I have built in some kind of infrastructure in order to make that happen behind the scenes. So there's support going on for the coaching and mentoring. And this is something that's a sustainable model. So for voluntary sector organisations, thinking about how this becomes sustainable for your organisation as well, and the benefits that people with lived experience can bring. I think that's all I can say for now, Rachel, so over to you.
Yeah, lovely. So just add a little bit around that sort of performance element. There's something about how can we create a space where you can temporarily, as I think Shayna perfectly described, just step away from the busyness of the day-to-day and actually just let go of some of that stuff temporarily, so you can almost regroup into the sort of sense of support around the thinking and moving towards action that we think we can bring to this. And as I can see sort of in the chat and sort of the comments, is a lot of what we've shared we know is not unique, but I think what we're uniquely doing is bringing together this package. So we've thought very much about the infrastructure, so that once people have done the initial training, they are not left on their own, they are supported to how can we link in for influencing and improvement. We've been thinking about sustainability, as Keymn mentioned, in terms of how do we grow this community and what that's going to take to do that. We're also making sure, from what Charlotte has said, about how do we connect this in with our influencing work, as there's different ends of the spectrum of the work that we do, and how we grow that together as a community so that we are learning from each other. And we're building knowledge, skills and confidence. And it's the sense of, you know, we keep wanting to model the way we, you know, the changes we want to see. We have to start with ourselves. So that's sort of where we're at. So if we could just move to the last slide, Aaliyah, I think we skipped through the middle learning because we wanted to hear from people, which is the most important thing. But just to sum up here again, you know, nothing completely startling, but I think it's just worth restating, you know, bringing lived and learned experience together, the investment in the shared learning. We don't keep people separated, we do the learning together. Building in regular reflection, Shayna talked about that space for reflection. We offer the coaching and the mentoring for people with lived and learned experience, you know, and always bringing in fresh insight, and again, how we're going to address, for example, health inequality and improve health outcomes. So just in terms of the last stage now, we have a little bit of space for some questions, which I think we've been collating from within the chat. We won't be able to respond to everything, but we are thinking we will probably do some other sort of opportunity to address people's questions as well. But I think we're going to open it up now, see what people have been saying, and we just sort of direct it to different people across who you've heard and anybody else, and then we'll close off with I think some comments from Charlotte at the end there. So I'm looking to my co-hosts and co-facilitators as to orientating me in that picture.
Yeah, certainly. So we're getting a lot of questions through around staying in touch and next stages. So we will definitely be sending out the slides. There'll be an expression of interest form and contact details for you to get involved and find out more. But I don't know, Rachel and Keymn, if you want to be a bit more explicit about how people could get involved on both sides, so as coaches and as coachees or mentees.
Yeah, I think afterwards you've got all the information to contact Rachel and I. The next steps is to just get that interest in, and then we'll contact, just contact us individually and we'll definitely get back to you.
Yeah, just to say a little bit more about what happens is usually we have an initial conversation with people about what they're looking for. So we support that sort of through a coaching process, so that we make sure that people feel ready to do this type of training, and you know, how they want to use that, what experiences they might have had before, and then we will do, you know, assuming that you're in the right place for that and that's what you want to do, we will then do another program. We're probably going to do another program later this year. We're just checking from our first 2 tests how that's going, and then we will bring people into the sort of the community to do that development. And then from a perspective, if you'd like to be coached and mentored by somebody with lived experience, very similar thing. Start off with a conversation, a bit like Shayna had with Keymn, about what you're looking for, what you hope to get from it, and then from that we begin to do a sort of what we call like a bit of a designed process, so people are matched together, and we always build in reflection to that. So if something's not working for either party, we make sure that we address that, or we can change the process around that. So we're doing it in a fairly deliberative way at the moment, because we are starting it small and growing it, but we're also interested to share everything that we've done about our co-production work over the last 2 years, because we've learned a lot from that, and we can share that through you know, coming to talk to you about strategic co-production. We can bring in lived experience partners who can support those processes as well. So just get talking to us and we'll take it from there. So that's how we know more, and there will be much more information on the website as well.
Thank you. There was a question about how you do the matching. How do you match people to form that coaching relationship?
So Rachel and I have put in an infrastructure where there's a screening process. So we'll have profiles of our lived experience partners and their backgrounds, and then the system leader can come to us and say, this is what I need, these are the areas that I'm looking at. Then that's how we will sit down and match both the client and the lived experience partner, making sure that interests are in the same area and what they're trying to achieve together.
Absolutely. Just to add to that, part of the way that we operate the model is that we do a lot of working out between people, in terms of, so that people, we know that the sort of, I want a better word, that the chemistry is right between them. So there's a bit of a testing process to begin with as well. And because our numbers we're starting small, we're beginning to learn a lot more about that as well.
Great, thank you. Also been some questions around costings and how that's going to all work. I don't know if you want to say a little bit about.
I think the next phases for us is to have those conversations. If people want to come to us afterwards, Rachel and I have built in some time so people can come to us and we can share, you know, what it is they're looking for exactly, and really think about what they're trying to achieve, and then we can work out exactly where the offers come in that we've explained today.
Yeah, and there's something about value in this picture as well. So obviously people have invested time, and you've heard from all the people who've taken part so far is they have accumulated an incredible amount of experience. So we want to make sure that that is recognised in how that we support this in terms of what needs to be invested in it. So as Keymn said, we can talk about, there's a way of negotiating that, but we have invested in those people with lived experience as well.
And can I just add that, you know, sorry, National Voices have also invested in doing this infrastructure where we've had experts come in and look at what we're doing and, you know, made it sustainable and cost effective for what you're actually getting. So there've been a lot of people, for me, this has been an experience where I've had a lot of people that I've never engaged in before. I've learned so much about business. I've never been evaluated by my own peers, people with lived experience, criticising a project, not criticising, but being critical friends. I'll use the right wording, critical friends to what you've developed. And it's been, I've loved it and I've learned so much. There's just so much to take from this whole programme for everybody.
Thank you. And just to clarify as well, people with lived experience who get involved are paid for their time and for being on the training.
Absolutely.
That's really important to say. There's been a question around if someone wanted to get involved in co-production for a specific topic or specific medical issue, is there a place to search for that, or how could people kind of find that out?
Okay, I think if you go to the NHS website, or if you come and speak to Rachel and I, we can have a conversation and direct you to the right places where you can find out more about co-production. And for me, I'm happy to share my learning of what I've done before and what's happened. So Rachel and I will actually be delivering workshops on that too.
Yeah, and I'm just picking up just something I've just spotted in the chat there about balancing power. So just want to say a little bit around that, about how when people are sort of sitting between the system and lived experience, one of the offers to the people who you've already heard from with lived experience is that we will continue to coach those people on a one-to-one basis as well, so that they are getting that support about actually what is it like when you're blurring the boundaries. You know, which hat am I wearing? It's that insider outsider feeling. So there is just something about, you know, we don't leave people unsupported, and I mean that in the sense of it's about talking through. I think Richard Chapman talked about this earlier on, that time to reflect around the sort of power, what's here, sort of allowing different things. So we do a lot of support around that. We recognise that, you know, it can be quite a tricky place sometimes when you're between two bits. So I just spotted that one in the chat there.
And Rachel, can I add to that also? This is an offer that we're looking to take forward. We've got other ideas in terms of research, and some of the co-evaluator, the lived experience co-evaluators have helped us shape how we get researchers involved in as well. I would just say that it's really important that people with lived experience are supported, but also system leaders need to be supported as well, as in order to make this work.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to go on, Rach?
I'm just looking at the time and conscious people, and I'm just wondering whether we want to bring Charlotte
in to wrap up.
Sort of, just to give us a bit of a high level wrap up, and we just want to throw we've got a little thank you screen that we just want to share as well.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. I just briefly summarise from my end what I've heard today, and what I hope you've all heard as well. I'm sure you heard other things. We all listen slightly differently. I think you will have heard that we're on a journey, and we're not making out that we've got every single obstacle overcome and every single problem solved. But I think we're on to something. We've got an offer here that we need to roll out, and we need to then see how it impacts with the real world and what happens as a consequence. I can't wait to get going. I think what we're now saying is we need you to invest in this. We need people with lived experience to come forward to invest their time and their headspace and their experience. And we need people who are leading services and systems and programs of transformation and reform and change to, again, make time for this and headspace, but also to pay for it. One of the reasons, as we said at the start, a lot of this stuff doesn't work in the end is that it's not sustainable. So the only way we can make this sustainable is by valuing it, and valuing it through paying for it. The cost of this is well within the budget of an NHS manager's training budget. And so we're thinking this shouldn't be too much of a problem. So please do lean in on that and make that investment. And finally, I think often when I talk about co-production, I have a sense we either do just blind activities, throw together a workshop. We need 10 Asian women with diabetes, and then we'll just run the workshop. We just act. or I'm in conversations where people just think and where people just describe the problem and begin to admire it. And I just think this is such an opportunity to bring together deep thinking, which has gone on for the last 2 years, with a very strong focus on pragmatic action now, because the whole coaching model is about what are you going to do as a consequence of having had the conversation we've had today. So I think this is a really interesting opportunity for all of us to combine that deep thinking with that clear commitment to doing stuff differently. And that gives me hope. Thank you.
Great. I think we're going to probably call it a day. They're very close, but I just want to, Aaliyah, could we just put up our little acknowledgements board, if that's okay? We just want to make sure we couldn't probably, a bit like the Oscars, we can't acknowledge everybody, but we just wanted to just say thank you to some particular groups of people who have really supported us through the 2 years. First of all, our advisory group, who are all named here, the lived experience partners, who you've met some of them today. Particularly want to mention our partnership group, who are made up from across our membership at National Voices, and people we had early conversations with, like Natasha and Jenny at Groundswell. And also we want to thank Sandra Howgate, who has done the wonderful artwork that has helped us to tell this story, which when words have failed us. And you'll be able to see some of that on Twitter, and it'll be on our website as well. And we've also just want to, I'm sure we've already said it, we'll say it again, we are not the first people to blaze this path. We follow in the footsteps of people who've pioneered this type of work, and we won't be the last. And we just want to make it a little bit easier as we go along the way. That this is hard work and we need to do it collectively. So interested to hear more. Keymn, last word from you, I think.
No, just wanted to say also thank you to Shayna, because I know she's got a busy diary and you were our first client. So thank you, Shayna, for letting us, for being our guinea pig. It's been a great journey so far. And I would just say, watch this space.